exercise will entail an online testing. And those of you who would like to do the test, please prepare your computers or your smartphones to be connected to the internet. Okay, we will give you the details in a while. I'm just letting you know. Thanks.
Now we have gone into another phase of our presentation today. My humble duty this afternoon is to introduce to you my two friends who are going to analyze and identify gender-sensitive contents in teaching and learning resources. Maybe we have been wondering to what extent our gender mainstreaming relation to the theme of our meeting here, which says Education Forum on Strategies for Retention of Girls and Young Women in Education Systems. Is it the fact that girls do not have role models? Is it the fact that boys experience hardships within their learning premises concerning pedagogies or methodologies? Is it the gender-insensitive leadership in schools? Or is it the teaching and learning material which is not encouraging the girls to go into STEM programs? So now I would like to invite here my dear sister, Ms. Chavazia Siopania. Could you kindly come forward, please? Sorry for the pronunciation. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Theo is a program specialist at the section of education for inclusion and gender equality at UNESCO Paris. For the last 17 years, she has been working to promote the right to education through UNESCO's work, focusing on women and girls at headquarters or in the field, through mainstreaming gender equality in education laws and policies. With African countries, she worked on the universalization of primary education and the implementation of the right to education, especially for girls. In the Arab region, she worked on policies and programs to mainstream gender in textbooks and curricula and teacher training. She also drafted and contributed to several UNESCO publications. The last focus on girls' education in STEM, and it shall be implemented or shall be launched at an international event on the same topic in August 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Theo. Thank you very much. Have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for this introduction. Am I supposed to go directly into my presentation, or shall we wait for our next co-facilitator?
Another co-facilitator. I'm sorry. Can you come forward? Mrs. Sandhya Gunes. Come this side. Okay. Yeah, sure. It has to balance. Okay. Gender balancing. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, here I've got another presenter, and she is Sandhya Gunes. She's going to introduce herself because unfortunately I don't have the biodata for her. Thank you.
It was sent. Thank you, Rose. I'm Sandhya Gunes. I'm at the University of Mauritius. I actually work at the Center for Innovative Lifelong Learning. I sincerely don't have much experience in gender, but we do talk a lot about access to education through the e-learning platforms that we are proposing. And I think it's an interesting opportunity to be here, to have more of this awareness and cross-pollination of ideas for people from different areas. So I'll be helping Teofania with the assessment that we're having, just to let you know that this is a very interactive session. And if you have your laptops and your mobile phones to be Wi-Fi ready, because you're going to be actually working right now. So lunch is over, now work starts. So I hope to be interacting with you much more this session. Thank you. Okay. So
thank you very much. Now, Theo, you can do your presentation. We are giving you 15 minutes. Then the 5 minutes will be given to the co-assistant. Then we'll give the floor to comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to give you a brief introduction about what this session is going to be about. For many decades, or for many years, especially after the JOMTN and after IEFFA, there have been systematic approaches to getting more girls into school. The Universal Primary Education MDG goal placed a lot of attention on access to schooling. And indeed, a lot of progress has been made. Never before have we seen so many girls in the classroom as we do today, and we're approaching gender parity almost globally at primary education level, and significant improvements have been made at secondary level. However, the real story is that girls never get to complete education, so they often drop out, and this happens normally between the transition from primary to secondary education, which coincides with adolescence, where gender roles become stronger, and the education tends to be undermined by social norms and expectations about what a girl should do in society. Once they make it to school, girls are also disadvantaged in terms of the quality of education they receive, but also the kind of studies they're encouraged to follow or not. This is particularly obvious in STEM topics, where they have been dominant by boys, both in terms of access and in terms of performance, and then we can see the reflection later on in the labor market. I will talk about in a presentation in a while. I just wanted to situate this. And for years, we thought that the issue here was just only policies and strategies and lack of funding. Certain countries that have put those in place, and of course it's important that we have laws that promote equal access to education, which is free and compulsory. Of course that's important. It's important that we have gender-sensitive policies and plans. But beyond that, a lot of the decision-making, let's say, in a girl's mind takes place during the socialization process, at home, in the playground with their peers, and in the classroom. And that socialization process is something that we missed, probably, or we haven't been paying enough attention in our education responses, and this is what we would like to alert you today with Sania. So I'm going to move on to the podium. Just to say that we will be talking about mainstreaming gender in textbooks and curricula and in teaching and learning approaches. Why do we need to do that? Why do we need to mainstream gender? Isn't it obvious to everybody? Well, it is not. Gender is something that we learn. We're born with a sex, but we grow up to become one or another gender. And this is very much enshrined in the socialization process. And we tend to associate certain qualities or certain decisions or certain facts with one gender or another. And in order to make that stereotyping tangible, there have been several tests. Those stereotypes can be explicit, so sometimes discrimination is deliberate, but most of the cases is subtle. We discriminate without realizing that we are discriminating. And we would like to introduce you to this test. It's an online test, implicit association testing. We're going to go to the Harvard website. those of you who would like to take the test with us, we're not going to judge anybody. Just to tell you that I have been working at UNESCO for so many years to promote girls' education, and when I did the test, I was found to be moderately biased. So it's not just to judge you, but in order to raise your awareness that we're all carriers of those gender stereotypes, and we tend to reproduce them in our working context, in our socialization process. And imagine if this is happening in the classroom, for example, by the teachers. You can imagine how their behaviors, in their interaction with female students, it does affect their learning process and the learning outcomes. So those of you who would like to take the test with us, Sanya will do that for you, but those of you who would like to do it individually, you can Google Implicit Association Test, Gender, Harvard. If you do that, then you have this link over here. Can you see? Take a test, Project Implicit. I'm clicking on it. This is just a warning exercise to tell you that you're not being judged for sure, and you're not going to be assessed. And then we go, I wish to proceed. So for those of us who are following and are doing the test, please click here, I wish to proceed. Oh, no, because you need to be here.
Hello, hello?
Yes.
We haven't gotten the link to...
I can go back.
Yeah, please do
I
that.
can go back, no problem. So, Implicit Association Test, Gender, Harvard. These are the keywords you need to Google. You can read from the screen. Or you can go Implicit Harvard. Are we okay? So I'm clicking on Take a Test, Project Implicit, Harvard University. It takes you to preliminary information, just to let you know that nobody is being judged, and you shouldn't be afraid. Then we click I wish to proceed, which is at the bottom. Can you see the cursor? Oh, so we can proceed, and then you can see online. Once you click I wish to proceed, then there are different tests. We're going to look for gender and science. Gender and science. I'm clicking on it, and from then on, I will let Sandy guide you through. She will be taking the online testing. Those of you who would like to do it with her, please follow on your individual computers or phones. Thank you.
Thank you, Theophania. So now you're going to know whether I am actually gender biased or not. So here goes. Could we have a show of hands of how many people have access? 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, okay. So it's mostly people who have an internet connection, a local internet connection. Fine. Oh, it doesn't matter. So I'll just continue. But like Theophania said, please do try this at home when you do have a connection, and it would definitely give you an idea of the cognitive biases that we might have without really realizing it. So, okay, so you just have to fill in the form. There's a basic form on demographics, so I'm just going to be filling that in. So submit. You can also opt to decline to answer if you're not comfortable with it. So it's quite open, it's quite democratic, the way that you want to portray yourself. So fine. Okay. Close your eyes. Submit. Choose a race. So I'm South Asian. Ethnicity, not panic. Or I think I'll go fast and I'll decline to answer for most of these tests, okay? So just to get us going. So you can also opt for decline to answer and you go next page. But actually it's being computed at Harvard, so I guess if they have people from different regions to answer, it'll be a more comprehensive study eventually. So please don't skip any points if you are comfortable with answering them. Okay. So then it brings you to, this is the test, what it looks like. You have basically two keys to key in, the E and the I. Okay? And they tell you what E stands for, what I stands for at the beginning of each session. So they have categorized male as man, son, father, boy, uncle, grandpa, husband, male. And science, for example, is astronomy, maths, chemistry, physics, biology, geology. So basically, these are just key terms that would trigger a certain response in your mind. And when you key in, it would automatically generate your sort of profile, your gender bias profile, if you want. So are we ready to start? It's also very, it depends on the speed at which you answer. So this is taken into consideration. So if you're not really focused, and you don't need to look at the screen, only those who are not doing the test can look at the screen, but those of you who are doing the test, look at your mobile phones and your phones, okay? So just concentrate on your mobile phones, on your laptops if you're doing the test. Okay, so I'm going to start. Okay, put the left finger on the E and the right finger on the I. So E is for science and I is for liberal arts. And items will appear at one time, and you will make mistakes, and the X bar will appear. So try to not make as many mistakes as you can, okay? So press the space bar. Should we go? Go. Okay, so arts, no, sorry. There, I've gone wrong. Science, humanities, astronomy, history, philosophy, engineering, biology, oops, English, I. There, literature, geology, chemistry, history, arts, physics, astronomy, literature. My fingers tend to go on their own. So the whole point is that it has to be something that is totally automatic, sort of. So E for male, I for female. So go. Okay. This is funny. I got the hardest job actually today. Male, mother, because I'm also standing in front of you, and yeah, okay, I'm going to take longer than I should there. So I'm going to be judged, yeah, but we're not going to be judging anybody. So music, uncle, maths, geology, grandpa, philosophy, grandma, oops. English, life, man, astronomy, sun, music, mother. And actually what will happen is that the questions are randomized. So it's not necessary that what's on the screen is what's on your phone. So, and anytime you take the test, it's also randomized. So just to have a more accurate result at the end. So male or science will be E, and female or liberal arts will be I. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I need to concentrate.
So while Sandy is doing the test, I just wanted to let you know that you have very little time to associate the name that you see or the word that you see or the character that you see on the screen with male or female. So you don't have time to think practically, so it's your subconscious that is doing the job for you, and this is how the stereotypes are revealed, and these stereotypes are things that we carry since the day we were born practically, and these are the ideas that we've been exposed to while we were growing up to be the adults we are today, and it's very difficult to forget those images or those symbols or these qualities that carry a gender value and that have been ingrained in our brains today. And then the reason we're doing this exercise, because we often talk about gender stereotyping as just another factor, and what we wanted to show before we go into the exercise of gender stereotyping in textbooks and curricula is to really show you the presence of it, whether it's conscious and especially when it's unconscious, and how it affects our behavior towards boys or towards girls, especially in the learning context. So when you see these words flashing up on the screen, this is where Sandy, and when you eventually take the test at home, this is where you make associations subconsciously about gender.
Okay. So this is the last lap. Have you been able to do it? How many of you have completed? Yeah? Okay. So we don't want to know your results, but it would be good for you to consciously be aware of your biases. Okay, so your rate towards science, I strongly like. I have a physics background, and I then moved into e-business, and then I'm into e-learning, just for your information. So, like. Different portions. I know it can be very boring for you watching, so you can help me here. Men and women, so you can answer whatever. On average, men and women differ in their willingness to high-powered. Yeah, they do differ. Somewhat important. Oopsie.
How many of us are still doing the exercises? Or some of us have dropped out, we have withdrawn.
Oh, I think I'm going to decline to answer. Being knowledgeable about ethics is very important.
There's just a couple of questions where how important you consider aspects related to STEM, science especially, and gender roles.
Oh, that's my results. Thank you. Read it. Okay. So my results are, your data suggests little or no automatic association between female and male with science and liberal arts, which means that I do not have any bias, none whatsoever. Is that it? Maybe I've done the test too many times. I'm cheating on it. Okay. So then you can answer, what brought you to the website and what you think of the IAT. So this is basically it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandy. You were a very good student and you disappointed your audience because I was hoping to see something else. Mind you, the more you take the test, the better you become. It's like on one of those tests where you practice and you become better. But the intention is that go online, test it for yourself, and then you can understand the importance of stereotypes. And then I'm going to situate them, if I can find my presentation. And before starting talking about stereotypes, we wanted you to be engaged and we wanted you to be aware of how important they are. Okay. So, educating girls. As I mentioned earlier, we've made a lot of progress in terms of educating girls and getting them into school. But even for those that are in school, this meeting is all about retention. And we know that even for those that are in school, that there are socioeconomic and cultural factors. There's poverty, geographic isolation, early marriages, early pregnancies, and a myriad other functions that compromise girls' education and progression, especially in STEM topics. And this ultimately affects their life and career choices and status. Why do we focus on STEM? For the first time, science, technology, and innovation have been acknowledged in writing as a prerequisite for the achievement of the SDGs. So we're talking about sustainable development, and we're talking about creativity, and we're talking about innovation. Where are these going to come from? These are going to come from opportunities to practice creativity, for opportunities to produce innovation. So that is why, while STEM underpins development, STEM education is catalytic for cultivating the knowledge and the skills and the attitudes we need to promote sustainable development. And if girls are deprived, and if girls are left out of STEM, they're left out of development opportunities. They're left out of opportunities to contribute to development and to benefit from development, to contribute to STEM and to benefit from STEM. And that not only creates inequality in the classroom, it also proliferates wider gender inequality. So it's critically important that we give equal opportunities to boys and girls to follow these study paths. The role of the teacher. I have a problem moving left and right with this one, and I don't know if I am on the right path. Can somebody help me with this? So that I don't have to, yeah, because it jumps, I think. Okay. Okay, thanks. So what is going on? Why do we have so many or so few women in STEM careers? What's going on? From the moment they're born, girls are brought up to believe that STEM are masculine fields. These are two stereotypes that have been included in PISA, carried out by OECD. They believe that STEM are masculine fields, therefore they're not appropriate for girls and women. And the second stereotype is that they believe they cannot be as good as boys in STEM. So they think that boys have this natural ability for STEM, while girls don't have that. So that's during the, from the moment they're born and the early socialization experience. Then they go to school. They go to school, and there the entire education system from teachers' attitudes and the teaching practices, the learning material, the whole school environment, the way teachers and students interact, the way students and students interact, the learning environment may reproduce and often does reproduce these stereotypes instead of challenging them. So we're talking often about the transformational power of education, but in order for education to be transformational, it needs to be transformed itself. It needs to acknowledge the potential of every child and not discriminate against. Those stereotypes, you know, you hear it around you, your parents tell you to behave in one way or another through the play opportunities they give you, the learning opportunities they give you, or the care opportunities they give you. They deliberately or not deliberately push you to one way or another. Then you go into school, the way teachers behave towards you, the way teachers encourage you or not disencourage you, also affect your choices. So these stereotypes then become so strongly ingrained in our brains that they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've heard that about in psychology. Believe it and it will happen. So girls have low confidence. This is not my area. I cannot do well in this area. Low confidence leads to low interest. Low interest leads to low engagement leads to low performance, etc., etc. That is why we only have about 1/3 of all female students selecting STEM fields of study, about 30%. If we consider that 15% of that 30% goes into traditional subjects such as health and welfare, nursing, or being doctors, then you are left with what? 15% of all female students where data exists around the world go into STEM alone. Less than 2 in 10 girls. That's a lot. This session is focusing on teacher training approaches and curricula. The information I'm going to be presenting is informed by the UNESCO report that has not been launched yet, so you're receiving advanced information and insider's knowledge. The report that we carried out, because a lot of member states come to UNESCO and say, oh my God, we have an issue with STEM education. Girls don't choose STEM to study, and if they do study STEM, they don't go into STEM careers. What are we going to do? STEM is the job of the future, but then girls are excluded and we do not have enough skilled workforce to go into STEM. What can we do about it? So they come to UNESCO. It's an increasing policy priority. We started consulting between our partner, development partners, academic partners and others. There hasn't been a lot of information circulating around. There has been pockets of information, mainly with the academia, with specific NGOs, with specific organizations, with specific countries, but nothing that brings everything together. So we thought it was important for us first to start building our knowledge base so we know what we're talking about when we do give policy recommendations to our member states. So imagine such an important topic and nothing much has been done about it so far. So what we've done at UNESCO, we started looking at the statistics available, mainly through the PISA study and through the team study that measure science and mathematics learning outcomes. The one measures science and mathematics acquisition, that's the teams, and the other one, science and mathematics knowledge implementation, application. What we found out is that indeed, where statistics are available, girls are underperforming in those fields. Boys tend to do better. However, over time, we're seeing some improvement. So we see more girls now into science. This change shows that this has nothing to do with biological factors. For many, many years, believe it or not, it was believed that the girl's brain was too small to absorb scientific or mathematical factors. How do you like that, ladies in the room? Yeah, do you know the word atmosphere? Yeah, it's a Greek word. I happen to be Greek, by the way, so I'm happy to give you a small lecture about the word atmosphere. Because people believed atmos is steam. Sphere is like the globe. The people for many, many years felt that what's around us, the air, the oxygen that's around us, is actually steam. So instead of calling it air sphere, they call it atmosphere. Atmos for steam. And yet, we perfectly use the word today, even we know it's not true. Right? So, The same thing about the biases that we carry for education. I'm going to focus now on two elements. So what we found through the report is that we wanted to know that's very, very strange what is happening, that girls are systematically out of STEM and girls systematically are performing less than boys. Why this is happening? So we went a step further and we looked at qualitative studies wherever they were available just to understand the factors behind it. So there were claims for many, many years that there were biological reasons behind it, that boys were naturally better in science and mathematics and other STEM topics. Girls were not. So we looked at biological factors, we looked at psychological factors, we looked at social factors, we looked at education factors. And guess what? What was the most important factor that keeps girls out of STEM, do you think? Who thinks it's a biological factor? Who thinks it's a psychological factor? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who thinks it's a social factor? And who thinks it's a school factor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'll tell you, because the audience, you can't see everybody, the audience has been split between psychological, social, and school factors. I'll tell you, it's all the factors that I mentioned earlier, except the biological. So we found that there are important differences in brain structure, in genetics between individuals, but less so between men and women. So yes, people are born with different genes, but this has nothing to do with gender. Okay? So there's nothing genetically predetermining girls or boys to do better in one way or another. There are a few findings from the study that show that probably hormones play a role in our behavior and our choices, but there isn't enough information to make a case out of it. For example, it shows that girls who were prenatally exposed to higher levels of testosterone were more aggressive in their play behaviors. And they later on chose careers that were more aggressive, such as economics, for example, and finance, that were typically considered male. But we cannot, there's nothing to establish yet a clear link between hormones and STEM choices. There is a hint there. What was stronger is that spatial, linguistic, and numeracy skills were highly associated with STEM performance, which means that children with stronger spatial skills, literacy skills, and numeracy skills, they were doing better in STEM later on. Boys were found to be slightly better in those skills. But what we found also is that those skills was because of the opportunities they had to practice. Through the games, the toys, the way they would behave with one another. They would be more confident in moving around in space than girls. For example, they would play with video games and girls would play with dolls, which means it gave boys the edge with those skills. Right? So we also found that the families and parents, especially mothers, had a lot to do with girls' choices to go or not to go into STEM. And it's no coincidence that those that are already in STEM have at least a member of their family, usually the mothers, into STEM already, who act as role models. All right, that's the socialization context. We also shows that peers play an important role, and actually a US study found out that children's choice of future STEM studies was influenced by what their peers, their female peers, felt about STEM themselves. So there was a choice to be made. There was a choice, and that's the psychological factor. Girls assess those social influences and those influences at school to make decisions about themselves and say, okay, if I go into STEM, that compromises my femininity. It compromises my life opportunities as a woman, therefore I will stay out. Can you imagine how strong those psychological pressures are that push girls into those decisions? Let's now focus on girls, and I'll be happy to answer more questions later about the wider factors. I'm going to focus now on teachers. Through the studies that are currently available, we found that higher achievement in science and maths was related to teachers with more teaching experience, more confidence in science and math teaching, and higher overall career satisfaction. What does that mean? That teachers have to be specialized in STEM. They have to be good at STEM themselves in order to be able to teach STEM effectively. So specialization is very, very important. Teachers need to master what they teach. The second important thing is that female teachers also have been found to positively influence girls' interest and engagement with STEM more than male teachers did. I will show you 2 diagrams. On your left-hand side, you will see how female teachers affected female enrollment in engineering, manufacturing, and construction in higher education. This is one of the fields with the least female representation. So there you would see that the more female teachers you had in secondary school, the more girls will go into engineering, which is considered traditionally male. The one on your right shows the results of male teachers. So girls with male teachers, the more male teachers they had, the less they would go into engineering. So the two are actually in opposition. So what do we need to affect? So to specialize teachers, train teachers well in STEM, and take into consideration the importance of having female teachers who play probably a role model for girls, and also they help to dispel gender stereotypes that STEM is not for women. So I am here, I'm a female teacher in STEM, therefore you can do it as well. Beyond that, we looked at the literature to see what kind of strategies are considered effective when it comes to STEM. And then we identified which of these strategies are more girl-friendly, let's say. So, strategies that improve students' achievement, attitudes, and interest in STEM subjects and careers-based are, they're context-based. They don't just teach abstract issues. They situate them in a real-life context. They're inquiry-based. There is interaction in the classroom, and students can ask questions, they can challenge. They're ICT enhanced. There's collaborative learning. Children are allowed, students can interact with one another, and they can form teams. And the use of extracurricular activities, meaning going outside the classroom and exploring the real world. These are strategies that have been identified to enhance students in general interest in STEM and make it more effective, coupled with some targeted strategies now that have been found to improve girls' interest. And these are building a science identity. I mentioned earlier that because of stereotyping, girls do not identify with STEM careers. They don't feel it's for them. So it's very, very important for them to feel like, I can do this, I can be part of the scientific community. So messages during instruction that science is for everyone, the teachers must use gender-neutral language. They have to project examples of women in science that have already been there and have achieved that, to give that career perspective and give that role modeling. And avoid classroom hierarchies favoring boys. In a UNESCO study that was carried out in 7 Asian countries, with classroom observations showing that, in the majority of cases, teachers favored boys in science and math classes because the stereotypes that I told you earlier, they believe that boys are naturally better in science, so there's no point in giving opportunities to girls. So without realizing that they were doing that, they were discriminating against girls. They were giving more opportunities to boys to participate. So the teacher needs to take that into consideration and make sure that they need to sensitize girls, that girls come with a deficit into science, so they need to balance that out. Another strategy supporting girls is involving them in hands-on activities. Girls need to be engaged, they need to be involved in what they're learning. So they need to be writing intensive and inquiry-based with adequate time to complete, revise, and discuss. So girls seek for meaning in what they do. They need to identify with what they do. They need to challenge, they need to understand, they need to ask questions. Another strategy is providing diverse school experiences that match the different interests of students within science. This can include hands-on laboratory, for example, exercises, and design-based learning to increase girls' science and technological confidence, and active classroom interactions that value students' point of view. So there has to be real learning experiences. Girls need to go into a laboratory, they need to go out, they need to observe, they need to put their hands in objects and study them. also need more time and experience with
Excuse me,
computers.
can you conclude?
I'm going to be going faster. More time and experience with computers to help increase their technological confidence. Out-of-school activities and homework with exposure to role models, for example, through direct meetings, videos, or success stories. What does that mean? So having museum visits, for example, where girls can come in touch with science, or extracurricular activities, or meeting successful women in science is also very important. These strategies are important if they take place in a safe learning environment that is free from violence and gender-based violence, and where girls are encouraged to take risks and are allowed to make mistakes. There's actually research that shows that when you make a mistake, you reinforce learning. How? Because you force your brain to think what went wrong. And by thinking what went wrong, you reinforce the cognitive capacity of the brain to think and evolve. So girls need that safety. Schools that are supportive of girls in STEM have been shown to reduce the gender gap in STEM by 25% or more. And these are studies that have documented these changes. And that this had a sustainable impact over time. 2 school characteristics play an important role. This is a strong science and mathematics curriculum, and opportunities for concrete experiences, as we mentioned earlier, and gender-integrated extracurricular activities. And why this happens? Because they help break the stereotype that STEM is for boys and that girls are not good in STEM. Chair, we took a lot of time doing the test, and I haven't been through my curricula yet. Can I have 5 extra minutes to complete this?
Can I get it from Rita? Is it okay we add 5 more minutes? Okay, it's a yes. Okay, thank you. You can go ahead.
Thanks. Right. So girls have different specific needs when they come to the classroom. They bring different perspectives, and the teachers need to take that into consideration. It's important to look at what we're learning at school. Through our research, we found out that STEM curricula are more appealing to girls if they have a strong conceptual framework and are contextualized and relevant to real-world situations. Women and girls don't want to work with abstract issues. They want to work with people and for people. They need to give something back to the society and to the community. They need that what they're learning makes sense to people and improves lives. So we need to keep that in mind. For example, when talking about aerodynamics, they need to show how this translates into a real-life improvement for people. Curricula need to provide varied experiences which integrate social and scientific issues together, as I mentioned, the social aspect, providing opportunity for genuine inquiry involving real-world experience, as well as opportunities for experimentation, practice, reflection, and conceptualization. What is happening, however, instead of this, what do girls find in curricula? They find stereotypes. Stereotypes that convey the message that they're not good enough, or stereotypes that they can only go and do this or can do the other. So it's important that curriculum designers create content and resources that are suited to the learning styles and the preferences of girls, as well as boys, of course, to remove gender biases from textbooks and other learning curricula. And we're going to engage you in an interactive exercise right now where you are going to revise extracts from curricula and see if you can spot the stereotypes yourself from there. And then you can also suggest ways of doing that alternatively. Not every country affords to go into curriculum review. It's a lengthy exercise and probably it's expensive, but it's important and it has to be done. And while this is happening, it's important that teachers are aware that gender stereotypes exist in the curricula. They need to know how to identify them so they can address them in the classroom. So it's important, while working on curriculum review, that you have teachers who can already recognize it so they can neutralize whatever gender stereotypes they find in textbooks and curricula. Another important thing that we often forget is the assessment. We talk about teaching, we talk about learning, and we talk about contents, but we forget assessment. And through our research, we found out that the way STEM subjects are assessed even more compromises girls' performance. These are the assessment contents that equally contain gender biases the tools that we use to assess. For example, it was found that boys do better in computer-based testing rather than pencil and paper testing, and probably this is because, as I said earlier, they do have an advantage with video games and the spatial skills, but also the processes, how we're being tested. For example, girls feel more comfortable doing tests in the classroom when they feel more relaxed, but they do less so when they're put on the spot, because girls are found not to like competition. They don't feel comfortable competing with others. So the moment you put them to compete, it's the moment they're going to underperform. Have you ever heard of mathematics anxiety? Well, it's a phenomenon that has been well documented. It's actually, some studies have measured mathematics anxiety in adults to be the same as physical pain. So it's so strong that pushes people away from maths. And it's also shown that females suffer from mathematics anxiety more than males. So there are psychological factors also with testing that need to be taken into consideration. And then again, there are the teacher's own biases, not only in the teaching classroom, but also when they mark exams. Studies have shown that teachers tend to overscore boys' test and underscore girls' test. When the name of the student was hidden, they would tend to give equal scores. But when the name of the student was obvious, they tend to favor boys because they think naturally that boys are better in STEM. So all these gender stereotypes are passed on during the teaching process and even the assessment. On your desks, you will find some papers. Papers that look like this. Look at the front of your desks. How much time? Our session is over. Okay, well. The intention was to go an interactive session where we let you analyze textbooks and curricula. I'm going to very, very quickly then inform people what these forms are. Sometimes we think that removing gender stereotypes from textbooks is a very complicated exercise. Well, it's not. I can share my experience with you with the Lebanese government. The Lebanese government was going through textbooks review at all levels of education. And with funds from the Italian government, we worked together to look at the gender perspective as well. So we worked with the Institute of Textbooks and Curriculum Development. We did a workshop and we came up with the tools that we shared with you now. These are tools that you can do to analyze text and images. So there are two aspects present in a textbook. This is the text and these are the images. And people were asked to numerically identify how many male characters exist in a textbook in a text and how many characters they can see in images. So we carried out this numerical counting, and you would be surprised that the majority of the images in the textbooks were boys. So how can girls identify with that? I'm going to show you some examples. I asked you to bring with you textbooks from your own country. I'm going to show you a few photos of what we see in a science textbooks. I'm not going to tell you in which country, but look. These are inventors in science. They're all male. Look at the body in science, a man's body. Look at that. Look at that. Look at boys doing computers. Look at a man voting. Where are the women? When you do this exercise through the text, it's even worse, actually. In the text, you will not only find male characters, and I'm sorry we don't have time to do this together, but the qualities attributed to males and females are different. So more active exercise, higher status, better, let's say, adjectives are attributed to men. Women are underrepresented or even misrepresented. They have a lower status than men. They appear as passive, with less leverage, into more traditional exercises. So this goes through a girl's brain, and this reinforces the stereotypes that I mentioned. And I need to... what is this? I nearly had a heart attack. I was rushing this through. So good news, we can do the exercise together. Fantastic. So look at the paper that we left for you on your desk. There is a list that says characters in illustrations. This is something to help you identify and qualify the characters that you see in a textbook. We went through this quickly on sciences, so you've seen, right? How many females did you see in those photos? None. Exactly. So numerically you can see. I'm going to ask you to do a test with me now, characters in text, and I'm going to show you, do you all have access to this table that says characters in text? How can I increase this? Yeah, I want to increase it even more. No, we will give it back to them because I identified something they want to work on. Okay, if you look at the form that says characters in text, there is a list. There are several details. Let's not make this complicated. Let's make this simple. What we're going to do, we will just say, forget about the first three that says group, serial number, page, that look at male and female. Every time we come across reference to a male character, we put a tick. All right? Then we look at their age. Is it a young person or not? But we can forget that also. Then the title. How are they addressed? Mr., Mrs., Miss, first name, surname. What is the profession or occupation or status? Is this a student, a doctor, a teacher? What's their relationship? Is it a mother, a father, a daughter, a son, a wife, etc.? What's the activity is the person doing? What is the interaction with others? What adjectives are used to describe this character? What is the social context? What is the place in the text? Is it in the title? Is it in the main text? Is it in an exercise? What is the order of speech that the characters have? And the times, etc. I think we can concentrate on mostly from 4 to 14. Okay, does everybody have access to this? If there is not enough, maybe 2 people can share. And then I will let you go through, is it visible enough? Can you read? No? Is it better now? Is it big enough for you to read? I can't make it any bigger, apparently. So, I will leave you a couple of minutes to go through from 21st to 27, and if we have time, we do the rest of the page, okay? So, using the table that you have that says characters in text, let's do this kind of analysis quickly. Let's see, how many M stands for male, F stands for female, and please complete every time you see a character. Does everybody know what to do? Do you need some clarification? Sandy, maybe we can... You need some clarification? I'll start again. This is the text we're going to analyze. You're going to use the table that says characters in text. Do you have that? Yeah. Characters in text. Yeah? It goes from 1 to 20. There are 20 elements on that table. It looks like this. I don't know if you can see. Maybe Sandy can help. The first, number 1, if you look at it, it says group, then it says serial number, then it says page, M for male, F for female, age, title. Have you all found this? Great. Now, let's do the first one together. The carpenter was very something in his work. Up, carpenter, his. That's the first male character we find. So, we tick. Male or female? Male. We don't have information so far about his age, so ignore. Title, we don't have information about his title, we ignore. Profession, occupation, carpenter. Relationship, is there any relationship there? No. The carpenter was there in his work and we never found any mistakes. Okay, so he was probably precise in his work. So there is no other qualification there because it's a short text, right? In other texts you find more elaborated information. So the second one, the museum confirmed that the coin was, and forget the second one, is not gender. 23, to imagine that a man can turn into a wolf is clearly something. Now, this is an exercise. The second character is what again? Male. You get it? So, you can continue. I will lower this because we've done this together. So maybe I will, yeah, you can work through the rest. Is this now clear for everyone what we're doing? Okay, 5 minutes to complete this exercise, and then we will compare the results. So you can continue with this as an example. I'm going to share also some textbooks. I was hoping that everybody would come with their own textbook, but it was not the case. But nevertheless, I can share some textbooks, and then you can go through them and see if you can find what characters are included in those textbooks, okay? But you can continue with this exercise. Are we enjoying this exercise? All right, let's conclude. Let's conclude. I would like to know how many characters did you count in this exercise? From 24 to the 31st. Questions, you mean? Yeah, I just want to ask them a few questions now, and then they can give us some examples. Okay, so we have another 25 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes now to present the results of this exercise, and then 20 questions and answers. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Can somebody tell me how many characters you were able to count? 6?
9.
9? 9. And how many of these characters are female characters?
No, 0.
How many? 0? Oh, my goodness. 0. An exercise with no reference to half of the population in the classroom. All right, so all 100% of the characters in this exercise are male. So you got the point, right?
Yes.
You got the point why it's important to do the revision of textbooks and curricula. And that's only the numerical aspect of it. That's only the numbers. There are also stereotypes in, as I said earlier, in the qualities that these characters carry. We didn't have time to go into more depth now, but in some contexts, these characters, for example, appear to have a stronger status than women. They are business owner, they're the directors, the surgeon. The woman is just simply the secretary, the woman is just the one who cleans the house, the woman is the nurse, etc., etc., etc. So we're not just saying that each of these qualities are inherently good or bad, but the problem is that they are blindly attributed to either males or females and not in an equal manner. This is what the challenge is. The challenge is not that there's a problem with being a secretary or being a director. The problem is who is always the secretary, who is always the director. Do you get it? So it's a simple exercise. It doesn't really cost a lot. It's something that we work directly, for example, with the Ministry of Education in Lebanon. We trained their team and they carried out their own textbook analysis. But as I said, we had the opportunity to have funding from the Italian Corporation, and this might not be the case all the time at class in every country. But wherever there are opportunities, I would like you to push for the gender audit to be part of that review. Okay. We will now open the floor to some questions. I will also ask somebody from Mauritius to tell me, because I understood recently Mauritius completed a full revision of all textbooks and curricula at primary level. Is there somebody in this room who can talk to us about this process or process? There's somebody? Please, sir.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rajiv Nenduradu, teacher trainer at the Mauritius Institute of Education. I'm also the coordinator of different textbooks in mathematics at primary level, grades 1 to 6. And now we are in the process of developing textbook for grade 7, that is secondary level as well. But then from what I have seen here is, I just wanted to share something with you, is in the development of our mathematics textbooks especially, one of the things that we follow is, it is a strict guideline actually, is avoid gender bias. So in all the textbooks that you'll see right now, currently, you'll see that we have an equal number of male and female characters in the textbooks. And not only this, when we have word problems as well, we have names for both males and females almost equally divided. But then this is not the only thing that we do. See, Mauritius is a multicultural society, and we also take into consideration the ethnic factors. Because ethnic factors, if you're not careful with that, you're not sensitive with that, it can create chaos in the country. And recently, I can just share with you, some 5 years back, there was one character in an English textbook, actually, and there was this girl. She was on the beach, and she had a two-piece swimming costume. And the problem is, her name was a Muslim name. Can you imagine the chaos that it created? And this happened, and the authors had to, remove that textbook completely from the market. And this page had to be changed as well. So we have very rigorous in balancing between male and female characters in the textbook, but we also take into consideration the ethnic aspect of in our textbook development. Thank you.
I have a question. Was this an initiative that came from the Ministry of Education, and how did it actually happen? What was the process that you had to follow? Was there a training that took place? Can you tell us a little bit more about the process?
Actually, it's from the Ministry of Education, but then it's mostly people, resource persons from Mauritius Institute of Education who go for the development of these textbooks. And one of the things that we follow is, like I said, avoid gender bias. Okay, thank you.
And thank you very much. Other experiences from other countries that went through textbooks, curricula, and review? Niger? And Kenya? Sir, would you like to go first?
Bon, merci. En fait, par rapport à cette thématique, le Niger, avec l'appui du bureau régional de l'UNESCO à Dakar, dans le cadre d'un projet qui fait la promotion de la scolarisation des filles, s'est penché sur la préoccupation des stéréotypes dans les documents scolaires. Et une équipe de spécialistes dans le domaine a été mise en place pour élaborer un module à l'intention des enseignants. Ce module est appelé « Genre et enseignement des sciences, mathématiques et technologies au secondaire ». Son objectif, c'est dans le cadre du CIEFFA, c'est de renforcer les capacités des enseignantes et enseignants, encadreurs pédagogiques, en vue de la prise en compte du genre dans l'enseignement des mathématiques, des sciences, de la technologie, et selon une approche basée sur la pédagogie active. Alors, le document n'est pas long, il comprend 3 parties. Une partie qui s'est occupée à définir les concepts, une deuxième partie qui parle des pratiques discriminatoires dans l'enseignement des mathématiques, sciences et technologies, et une troisième partie qui s'intéresse donc aux solutions par rapport à cela. L'idéal serait qu'on révise les programmes, mais à la fin, le document a trouvé ou a recommandé que les enseignants, qu'ils soient hommes ou femmes, fassent la promotion de la pédagogie non discriminatoire.
Très bien.
C'est-à-dire celle qui prend en compte les besoins des élèves, filles et garçons, dans le processus d'enseignement-apprentissage.
Merci beaucoup. We heard one example from Mauritius where they decided to review all textbooks and curricula, which is probably the ideal context, if the resources and if the capacities are there. We also heard a context, the response from Nigeria, where probably not yet, they did not have the resources to do a full textbooks analysis, but in the meantime, they developed a guiding document for teachers, how teachers could work to recognize and neutralize those stereotypes and promote more gender-sensitive approaches in their classrooms. There was a person from Kenya who wanted to make an intervention. right? Kenya? Is there anyone else who would like to share an experience? We will take one more.
Ce n'est pas le Kenya, c'est le Sénégal.
Sénégal, excusez-moi madame, j'ai entendu Kenya tout à l'heure. Donc on a Sénégal, il y a quelqu'un d'autre? Et? Vous madame? Côte d'Ivoire? Zambia? Je vous en prie.
Donc, au Sénégal, nous avons eu l'expérience avec le réseau international de recherche sur les représentations sexuées. J'ai été contactée particulièrement par l'UNESCO, alors que j'étais à l'INEAD. C'était pour faire une étude sur les enjeux du genre dans les manuels scolaires de mathématiques à l'école élémentaire. Donc, on m'avait contactée comme j'étais professeur de maths femme. Donc, l'étude a été faite sur les 6 manuels qui étaient utilisés du CI au CM2. Donc, avec la grille qu'on appelle la grille du RIRS, R-I-R-R-S, donc c'est avec l'UNESCO et Florence Mijon, nous avons pu détecter qu'il y a des stéréotypes sexistes dans les manuels scolaires. Donc, en décembre 2007, nous avons partagé l'étude avec les éditeurs du Sénégal, tous les acteurs et les inspecteurs. Et après, bon, une décision a été prise au ministère de l'Éducation nationale pour corriger les manuels et de ne plus y mettre les stéréotypes sexistes. Voilà, donc pour le moment, je peux vous le donner. J'ai les documents en ligne. Je peux partager avec vous ces documents. C'est sur mon cloud. C'était en 2007. Je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie.
Merci.
Alors, Zambia et Côte d'Ivoire.
Thank you, Chairperson. In Zambia, we do have a policy that supports the mainstreaming of gender in the curriculum. We also have a guideline, a framework that ensures that we address issues of gender stereotyping. And actually, all our materials in all the learning areas are gender responsive. But then we look forward to having a tool and training of material developers that have a comprehensive framework that ensures that we do integrate gender in the manner that I have learned from this gathering. So I look forward to undergoing a training that comprehensively guides on how we are supposed to be gender responsive in the way we develop materials. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Côte d'Ivoire, and then we'll let the chairperson moderate a question and answer session. Côte d'Ivoire?
Oui, merci. Je voulais dire que l'image qui a été projetée tout à l'heure, ça vient d'un manuel la Côte d'Ivoire en 6e sur les TIS. Et il y a dedans d'autres images qu'on n'a pas vues, mais on a montré une fille sur un computer. Donc, l'idée d'enlever tout ce qui est stéréotype dans les manuels, ça a déjà été développé. Et sous l'impulsion de nos bailleurs UNICEF et tout ça, ils nous ont aidés à enlever tout ce qui est stéréotype. Et cela aussi, ça a été encouragé après la période de troubles que nous avons connue. Il fallait enlever tout ce qui est stéréotype qui pouvait faire naître la guerre, des idées discriminatoires et tout ça. Et c'est sous cette impulsion que cela a été fait. Avant, on pouvait lire dans les manuels au primaire, par exemple, Mamadou joue à la balle, et puis Aya joue à la poupée. Aya, c'est une fille. Bon, maintenant, tout ça, ça a été toiletté et on n'en trouve pas. Mais bien sûr, il y a une autre image où on voit la dame qui est professeure. Dans la salle informatique, on la voyait pas bien, et c'est une école de garçons. Malheureusement, on aurait dû mélanger filles et garçons. Donc, je prends bonne note de toutes ces observations. Je trouve que ça va nous aider à améliorer ce que nous avons déjà fait.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So you heard what happened in Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire, it was already in a textbook that was revised to remove gender stereotypes. They didn't realize that what they showed with the image with the computers that I showed earlier, it was only in a boys' school, for example, right? But so we need to be really, really careful about not only the number of male and female characters that you show, but also the activities we are depicting them. My presentation is over, and I think the chair would like now to open the floor for any discussions. Before I do, I have with me an example of a UNESCO publication that talks about the review of textbooks and curricula to remove gender stereotypes. I have a couple of copies for you to look at now. The document is also available online in English and French. But the tools that are shared with you, these are tools that we developed, as I said, with the Ministry of Education in Lebanon. You're welcome to reproduce them and use them in a way you see fit. Thank you very much.
I haven't heard it properly. Can we give her a big hand, please? Thank you very much. Thank you, Theo and Gunes? Tandia, for the presentation. It has been live and it has come after lunch, but I didn't see anybody sleeping. That is great and marvelous at the same time. It has been an eye-opener. Maybe to some of us, we have been saying, yeah, we have them, but others, maybe this is not being analyzed in their countries. So maybe there are some issues which we still needed to ask her for clarity. You are free to do so. I'll take, I think, about 5 people, if you are there in the audience. 5 for commenting on what she has presented. I see a hand. The usual thing, you give us your name, the country you are representing, then you come up with your issue. Thank you. Over to that side. I recognize you.
Thank you very much. My name is George Afeti. I'm not representing any country. I'm representing myself, but I'm from Ghana. I agree with Theophania that female teachers can be good role models for girls. But I think that we need to qualify that a little bit. It is not just any female teacher, because the important thing is that the teacher must be capable, must have a subject mastery, must have pedagogical skills that will make the student feel at home with the subject. So the mere fact of having only a female teacher is not enough. We need to qualify it a little bit.
Thank you for that comment. Next here, thank you. After that, it will be UNICEF.
Okay, my name is Ave Maria from Tanzania. Concerning the role model, I think that is really a strategy that works. We in Tanzania, apart from changing the content, but we also take the issue of the change of the mindset. And in schools, we have initiated gender clubs, which both boys and girls do participate. And maybe to respond to my colleague who has just spoken, when we are talking about role model is somebody who is capable. But always whenever you mention a woman, the comment that will come for a man, it will be, they are supposed to be capable. Please, we are capable, and when we are talking about role models, they are capable, and that's why we say they're supposed to be there for girls to see that we have somebody to copy too. You see a woman engineer there, she is your role model. You see a woman who is an IT specialist like my doctor here, she is a role model. We don't need an extra qualification to qualify for whatever is expected to be a role model. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanzania. Then we go to UNICEF.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais parler en français. Je rebondirai tout de suite sur ce que disait le professeur Georges Afeti. On a non seulement j'adhère totalement à ce qu'il vient de dire, mais en plus de ça, on a des résultats très qualitatifs aussi. Quand on demande aux filles si elles préfèrent avoir un enseignant fille ou un enseignant homme, les résultats ne sont pas directs. Ça dépend vraiment de l'expérience des enfants et qui sont plus liés, je pense, aux capacités pédagogiques, effectivement, de l'enseignant homme ou femme qu'ils ont en face d'eux. Donc, c'est un sujet très épineux. Par rapport à ça, vous avez présenté un graphique où vous parlez de l'impact de la féminisation du corps enseignant sur la fréquentation des filles. On ne peut pas parler d'impact. Non, on peut pas. Enfin, ici, il y a marqué Female Teachers Impact on. On ne peut pas parler d'impact dans le cadre d'une corrélation simple. Il y a des. Enfin, là, on a un graphique à 2 entrées, très joli, qui nous va bien, etc. Mais l'impact, c'est quelque chose qui se mesure de manière beaucoup plus complexe que ça. La deuxième chose, c'est par rapport au test, qui est très parlant, certes, mais ce que je demanderais, c'est, j'avertis tout de suite, j'ai été point focal, un guy, gender, je suis fully committed sur le gender, mais il ne faut pas surestimer le gender biased. Parce que le premier exemple, le charpentier, il n'y a rien qui dit dans le manuel que c'est un garçon ou une fille. Et quelqu'un disait hier que le problème de genre, c'est un problème sociétal qui remonte à l'école après, mais qui n'est pas intrinsèque à l'école. Donc résolvons ça dans la société d'abord, et l'école, elle s'adaptera de toute façon. Et l'école peut être un acteur de changement. Je suis d'accord sur le résultat, il n'y a aucune citation de caractère féminin, mais je pense que quand on parle d'un charpentier ou d'une équipe de foot, dans les yeux de l'évaluateur, ça devrait être gender blind.
Thank you very much. My sister Chad, yes. Let's finish with her, then.
Yes, thank you very much, but I will speak in French too. Je voudrais dire plutôt que le fait de combattre les stéréotypes est une très bonne chose pour équilibrer ou donner la chance aux enfants, filles comme garçons. Cependant, il faudrait qu'on prête très attention parce que s'il faut enlever tout ce qui a caractère mâle, on va encore créer un autre problème, c'est-à-dire on va tout féminiser et puis finalement, il va manquer aussi le caractère mâle qui doit accompagner. Ça, c'est une chose. L'autre chose, c'est que, bon, les programmes que nous avons étaient un peu adaptés par rapport à l'ancien temps. L'ancien temps où la société était comme telle, où la force était mâle, où toute décision doit être prise par le mâle. C'est ça qui a fait que les manuels scolaires également ont été conçus par rapport à ça. Mais aujourd'hui, nous sommes un monde moderne, à évolution. Alors, il faudrait également adapter les choses en fonction de l'évolution du monde qui va. Et là, nous devrons encourager les enfants, filles comme garçons, pour dire que tous les métiers sont au fait possibles pour tout le monde. Et c'est par rapport à ça seulement que nous allons gagner ce monde-là. Parce que là, il y a des garçons aussi qui ne sont pas bons à l'école dans les études générales, mais qui peuvent très bien réussir, par exemple, en cuisine. Et si on va dans des grands hôtels, un chef cuisinier, c'est un homme. Alors que dans certaines sociétés, par exemple, la cuisine n'est pas du tout pour le garçon. Et le garçon ne doit même pas mettre sa tête dans la cuisine. Donc, il y a un travail de sensibilisation qu'il faut faire au niveau des communautés, au niveau des parents, pour que l'intégration genre se fasse d'abord depuis la maison. Parce que l'école amène seulement à fixer les connaissances, mais ce n'est pas au niveau de l'école qu'on doit éduquer. C'est les parents qui doivent d'abord éduquer. Il faut sensibiliser vraiment. C'est le grand travail à faire pour suivre l'évolution de ce monde-là. Sans quoi, nous sommes en train de déraper et je suis sûre que je peux dire que les parents sont en train de démissionner de leur rôle. Plus personne ne veut éduquer son enfant. Donc, il faut les sensibiliser à jouer leur rôle d'abord en tant que père et mère, à donner la chance aux 2 enfants, garçons et filles, d'accéder à n'importe quel métier et qu'on dit, n'est-ce pas, vouloir c'est pouvoir. Donc, merci.
Thank you very much for the comments and the questions. And she's here to respond to some of them, if it's possible. Over to you, Madam.
Yes, thank you. Your questions, and I think a presentation goes very fast and we can only touch upon the surface of things, and this is how now it becomes more interactive and we go more into detail. I wanted to go back to my presentation, and I will start with the first comment. When I was talking about teachers, the first thing that I mentioned is teachers' experience, is the specialization of teachers that matters. That's what the first thing that I said. Teachers who feel competent and confident to teach STEM are the ones who are going to produce students that are competent and confident in STEM. But then I said also that female teachers have been found in certain contexts to play a role. And I really like the comment that made by the colleague over there. When we immediately we hear a female teacher, we assume she's not competent. Why would we assume she's not competent, right? So I don't want to negate, I totally agree with you that this is what our findings showed, that competence is the first thing, but female teachers in certain contexts were found to have an edge towards girls, and probably because girls could identify with the female character. And also, the mere presence of a woman in a STEM context shows that other women and other girls can also be there. So, of course, there are subtleties, and of course, there are differences and contextual factors. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify this. Then I'm going to use this, which was the issue raised by UNICEF. I didn't make a reference to a generalized change when it comes to the presence of female teachers. This is what we have found in research. This is statistics available that shows the influence of female teachers in a specific field of study, which is engineering. And we suspect that engineering is one of those, first of all, is one of the lowest subtopics of STEM with female presence. So we assume there is a lot of gender stereotyping associated with engineering, less so with science, for example. So the presence of a female teacher there probably is stronger because it helps disassociate gender with this. I didn't elaborate and I didn't make connections around it, but thank you for raising it, and at least it gives me the opportunity to clarify. This is what we found through statistics, and it can certainly not be generalized with STEM. Okay? Well, this is what we found with a specific subtopic. You have some questions. I'd be happy to take it further if the chair, maybe after I respond to other questions, if I didn't take that clearly. And then I have to be reminded of the other questions.
Okay, it's a question from asking about role model and also fight against the stereotype. Should we eliminate everything and let it become feminine in the books? That's exactly the concern.
Yeah, that's another good question that you're giving me here. The issue of role models, I think it has been proven in several contexts to have a positive effect on girls' choices. Girls cannot imagine themselves in positions that they cannot see others doing, so it's very, very important. What we found also through our research is that for role models to be effective, they have to be reachable. So if a girl feels that this woman is super successful, she must be a genius, I cannot identify with her, then the role model has a negative effect. It has the opposite effect. The girl feels, I'm not as good as this woman, so I cannot make it. So it's very, very important that girls identify with the role models. Then through the research, when we're talking about integrating aspects that are of more interest to girls, we should be careful to keep the balance so that we don't feminize or over-feminize the curricula. So the intention is to remove gender stereotypes and make them more equal, but not to change the equilibrium from one side to the other, right? Is there something else I haven't addressed, Madam Chair?
Some of the issues were comments, so I think where you needed to answer, you have.
There was a further question, I think, from UNICEF. I don't know if we have time to take it.
I think you can go ahead. The issue of the test, where we are using a carpenter, I think that's the concern. That is the carpenter, a man or a woman. So those are the issues because it's neutral according to him. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, correct. And I think the sentence starts with carpenter, but then it says his. So it was not us who decided that the carpenter was a male. It was the text itself. Yeah, in his work. So the carpenter was very probably punctual or precise in his work. So it's the sentence that defines the carpenter as a man.
I think, Theo, you have tackled all questions. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think according to the time which was given to us, we have used it accordingly and properly. The issues which have come out here is to go back to our countries, look into the issues, the textbooks which we are using. Yes, some of us, we have indicated that the textbooks are gender balanced, But now we have heard that some of them may be overemphasized on females. So we have to look back and make sure that whatever we have is gender balanced. But the issue maybe most of us have not tackled is concerning the questions which we give to our students. Have we ever checked on them? What type of questions? Are they gender balanced when we are giving such? So that is the issue which we need to also go, when we get back, we need to look into. We have come to the end of our session. We thank you very, very much for your participation. It has been a very wonderful and lively presentation. Thank you very much to the two presenters. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Sandy.
Honorable Minister of Gender Equality, Child Development and Family Welfare, High Officials of the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Education, Dr. Rita Biswanath, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are now coming to the final part of this forum. For this closing session, Mr. Dansingani, Senior Advisor of the Ministry of Education, will make a presentation of the way forward, the call for action. Next, Dr. Biswanath, coordinator from AU CIEFFA, will give the wrap-up address. And finally, we will invite the Honorable Minister, Mrs. Fazila Jiwa Doriaou, Mauritian Minister of Gender Equality, Child Development and Family Welfare, to formally close the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 3 days, we have been involved in very intense exchanges of ideas. We've shared experiences and lessons, and we've deliberated on various issues raised around our three main themes, namely STEM, TVET, and higher education. As we have seen, those issues are indeed manifold and often rather complex. In each of these areas, we've identified a range of various challenges, and we've recognized factors that we need to reckon with in the pursuit of our common objective to ensure the fullest participation of girls in the sectors concerned. Participants have put forward a wide array of recommendations that have been synthesized and formulated by a team of rapporteurs who worked very hard to produce a report on the call for action. We trust that member states will take ownership of this document and that the recommendations therein, based on consensual collective deliberations, will receive the attention and consideration they merit. More importantly, we hope that they be fully taken on board in the implementation of eventual measures to open new horizons for girls across the continent and provide them with the widest opportunities to evolve in various fields. There is no doubt anymore that the empowerment of girls and young women through education will be one of the greatest forces creating additional economic value and generating substantial social benefit for all. Now, before Mr. Dansingani takes the floor, Mrs. Simanyanke will give us a brief feedback on how the call for action document has been prepared.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Alors, comme elle vient de le dire, le secrétariat a travaillé sur l'appel à action et je vous dirai un peu comment est-ce que nous avons procédé, la méthodologie de travail qui a été utilisée. Alors, vous verrez que dans cet appel à action, le call for action, il y a un préambule qui est suivi lui-même de l'appel à action. Dans le préambule, certainement que vous verrez qu'il y a des activités de l'Union africaine CIEFFA qui ont été mentionnées, auxquelles sûrement vous n'avez pas pris part. Donc, pour ne pas être surpris, on voudrait vous dire juste que pour avoir organisé cette réunion pour laquelle nous sommes ici aujourd'hui, il a fallu que nous fassions certaines activités, certaines réunions dont les recommandations nous ont poussé à faire cette réunion que nous avons aujourd'hui. C'est pour cela que dans le préambule, vous verrez que certaines réunions de l'UACFA seront mentionnées. Et dans le préambule, nous avons également mentionné certaines politiques qui nous tiennent à cœur. Et donc, dans le Call for Action, on a mis l'accent sur 4 domaines sur lesquels nous avons beaucoup discuté ici, notamment tout ce qui est STEAM et tout ce qui est TVET, c'est-à-dire l'enseignement technique professionnel. Et également, le 3e point de l'appel à action va porter sur l'environnement d'apprentissage et d'enseignement sensible aux genres. Et le 4e point a porté sur le cadre juridique et institutionnel qui porte sur l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Alors, l'appel à action va être lu par un État membre ici, c'est-à-dire l'île Maurice, qui a bien voulu abriter cette réunion. Et également, c'est un document qui ne sera pas ouvert à la discussion, malheureusement. Mais ce que nous allons faire, nous vous enverrons le document. Il est seulement actuellement en anglais. Ben, nous espérons pouvoir le traduire dans les jours à venir pour que les francophones également puissent faire leurs inputs. Mais déjà, on peut l'envoyer en anglais pour les anglophones pour faire leur input et nous espérons l'avoir d'ici mercredi prochain. Mais tout de suite, on l'enverra également pour la traduction. Et donc, les inputs que vous pourrez faire, si vous voulez faire les inputs directement dans le document, priez de le faire en version track change, c'est-à-dire suivi de modifications. Et si vous ne voulez pas également le faire directement dans le document, que vous le faites en document séparé, tant mieux. Mais il faudrait vraiment donner des recommandations très précises pour ne pas que nous ayons un document très long, parce que nous avons l'habitude d'avoir des documents déjà longs. Et nous avons vraiment fait l'essentiel pour avoir un document, je pense qu'il est de 5 à 6 pages maximum. Donc voilà ce que je voulais dire pour que vous puissiez suivre très facilement le Call for Action qui sera présenté. C'est la méthodologie de travail que nous avons utilisée. Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Simon, for these explanations. And now I'll call upon Mr. Dansingani for the presentation of the document.
Thank you very much, Madam Facilitator, Honorable Minister, Rita, guests, friends, and colleagues. It's my privilege and honor to be able to give you a read version of the call for action that has been formulated in the wake of the 3-day meeting that's been taking place. The preamble goes this way. We, member states of the African Union, regional economic communities, civil society organizations, and development partners gathered at the AU CIEFFA Forum on Strategies for Retention of Girls and Young Women in Education Systems, jointly organized with the Republic of Mauritius from 10th to 12th July 2017 at InterContinental Hotel, have discussed the following sub-themes, namely STEM, TVET, teaching and learning environment/materials, and legal and institutional framework. The main objective of the forum has been to mainstream gender in STEM and TVET programs to close the gender gap in education systems. Recall the existing legal framework on education, Agenda 2063, SDG 4, CESAS, TISA, the African Strategy for Tibet, and various policies and instruments pertaining to girls' and women's rights to education. Further recall the previous AU CIEFFA initiatives in promoting girls' education held at the margins of the 29th AU Summit in Addis Ababa on 30th June 2017 on why invest in girls' education, the capacity building workshop for parliamentarians held on 13th May 2017 at the Pan-African Parliament PAP in Midrand, South Africa on enhancing our institutional and legal environment for the rights of girls and women's education, the dialogue with traditional and religious leaders of Burkina Faso on 26 May 2017 on retention of girls at school, the high-level dialogue on gender and education held on 26 January 2017 in Addis Ababa, on the margins of the 28th AU Summit, and the seminar with UNESCO from 14th to 15th December 2016 at UNESCO Paris on fostering quality education for girls in Africa, ensuring access, retention, and transition. Welcome recommendations from the above meetings, and in particular the high-level dialogue on gender and quality education, calling for a more gender-sensitive curricula, and the UNESCO seminar advocating for change in teaching and learning models focused on STEM and Tibet, the adoption of affirmative action to encourage and increase the number of girls and women in these fields, and pragmatic initiatives to ensure their retention and completion, applaud programs that target women in STEM, such as the AU Kwame Nkrumah Awards for Scientific Excellence Regional Awards, and invite the winners of such prizes to play an ambassadorial role model to inspire after career guidance and mentor girls and young women. Acknowledge the valuable efforts made in the last 3 decades in promoting girls' education, especially access and affirmative action initiatives undertaken by AU member states. Note with concern the persistent discrimination and the low level of awareness towards girls and women in STEM and Tibet, as well as male-dominated sectors, inadequate investment in and untapped potential of girls and women in maths, science, technology, engineering access, and low rate of female participation in basic infrastructure, building clean technology, the blue economy, technology, information which will limit the empowerment and overall contribution to development. Recognize the importance of multi-sectoral approaches and partnerships in inclusive education and the necessity to enhance stakeholders' collaboration in the public sector, private sector, with development partners, in regional organizations, regional economic communities, civil society organizations, community-based organizations, academia, research institutions, think tanks, and in all formal and informal sectors, and the need to champion and maintain sustainable leanings of STEM fields, TVET sectors, and innovative programs. Call for the creation of a fund of venture capital to support spin-off entrepreneurships from STEM to encourage innovations, development of small businesses and enterprises, and introduce and expand formal and non-formal entrepreneurship training for girls and women. That was the preamble. The call to action reads thus. We, participants, make the following call to action. Number 1, mainstream gender in STEM. Challenges abound that limit girls' and young women's access and performance in STEM programs, namely, A, negative influence or perception of teaching personnel and families/communities towards girls, discouraging them from accessing and performing in STEM. B, the existence of cultural and religious beliefs which perpetuate gender stereotypes in STEM. And C, lack of gender disaggregated data in STEM for analysis and development of policy that informs specific future actions and interventions to close the gender gap in STEM. To address the challenges, the following actions must be undertaken. Number one, strengthening the role of educational actors in demystifying accessibility to STEM for girls, train them and associate them to eliminate the myths and fear of scientific subjects. Number two, investing in human capital and financial resources to build the self-confidence of urban and rural girls by boosting their interest to enhance their performance in STEM. Number three, involving families, communities, media, religious, traditional leaders, and other stakeholders in eliminating gender stereotypes in the learning and teaching environments, in materials, by enforcing and implementing the legal and institutional framework on girls' education. Number four, popularizing the leadership of women and girls as role models to boost girls' interest in learning STEM and preparing their future careers as scientific women. Number five, developing a monitoring, evaluation, and reporting framework showing data statistics developed from research and studies carried out by countries and partners. And finally, number six, information sharing on best practices and success stories in STEM and TVET. The second thrust of the call for action is mainstream gender in TVET. It is recognized that there are social, cultural, and economic challenges that girls face in accessing TVET. These include, number A, negative perception which limit number of girls and women in male-dominated vocations. B, lack of professional and entrepreneurial skills. C, limited budgetary allocation, among others. And number D, lack of female role models in TVET. To address the challenges facing girls in TVET, the following actions must be undertaken. Number one, gender sensitivity in teaching and learning infrastructure in TVET institutions, national affirmative action policies for female participation in male-dominated occupations, the necessity to recruit more competent females as TVET instructors to teach in male-dominated disciplines. Number two, STEMitize the curriculum right from the lower levels of education system, provide sufficient budgetary allocation to TVET, and so as to support girls in TVET through needs-based bursaries. Number three, re-engineer the content and methodology of training offered in traditionally female disciplines by introducing technology so as to change perceptions. Number four, strengthen the teaching of entrepreneurial skills and facilitate the transition from school to self-employment of women trainers, women trainees, female mentors from the business community. Number five, integrate ICT skills into all programs to enable trainees to better compete in regional and global job markets. Number six, organize job readiness seminars for female students on female workplace needs, including issues on gender stereotyping at the workplace, assertiveness, managing stress and discrimination, self-confidence building, and interpersonal skills, institute regular in-service training of trainers and other staff on gender issues in Tibet, as well as parents, communities, and other actors supporting girls to resist pressure and societal attitudes that influence them to self-select into traditionally female-dominated programs. And finally, number 7, engage with academia to undertake research on impact on gender divisions in Tibet to ensure better policy interventions for Tibetizing girls. Call for action thrust 3, gender-sensitive teaching and learning environment in higher education. Pan-African universities, PAU, are confronted with different challenges in meeting their goals to deliver quality education. Persistent gender imbalance in higher education, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and maths fields, limits women's participation in advanced postgraduate training and research. Admission, retention, and completion rate of female students. C, poor infrastructure, particularly physical facilities such as libraries, laboratories, lecture halls, as well as accommodation. And 4, lack of appreciation of gender issues in the learning institutions. To address these challenges in higher education, the following actions must be undertaken. Action number 1, member states, RECs, and the AUC to support the PAU institutes in developing policies and strategic action plans that facilitate gender mainstreaming. Number 2, stakeholders to implement research recommendations to ensure that the PAU institutes and other higher education institutions meet the basic requirements for excellence in terms of policy, infrastructure, and equipment. Number 3, the AUC to facilitate the review of existing handbook and other procedural manual and undertake induction sessions on gender. Number 4, develop gender-sensitive contents that guarantee equality and equity, as well as respect for individual aspirations, potentials, and abilities. Number 5, develop training manuals to sensitize education managers, curriculum and material developers, and media professionals on gender issues. And number 6, AU member states, through the technical support of the AU CIEFFA coordination, to monitor, review, evaluate, and report on the implementation of this call to action every 2 years, and to link it to other reporting mechanisms. The 4th thrust is legal and institutional environment to support the right to quality education for girls and young women. These are challenges in implementing the existing legal and institutional frameworks on girls and women's education. A, lack of awareness of the existing international instruments by gender focal points within the ministry limits their ability to monitor or follow up on government's obligations. B, there is poor coordination mechanism from continental and regional institutions such as the AUC, the regional offices, RACs, etc. Lack of or delay in reporting by member states to the relevant treaty bodies makes it difficult to monitor progress. To address the challenges, ladies and gentlemen, the following actions must be undertaken. Number 1, African Union Commission is to take the leadership of the coordination and monitoring so as to impose the reporting of progress from member states. Number 2, strengthening reporting mechanisms to make governments more accountable in the process, to the process. Number 3, establish interministerial task force from the level of ministers to technical staff for effective implementation and information sharing. And finally, the AUC to work closely with member states and RACs to enhance the implementation of the call to action. The take of this call for action, Mauritius, Balaclava, 12th July 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dansingani, for this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, in view of time constraints, we will not invite further interventions from the floor. However, as Mrs. Simon Ayanke has already explained, this document will be shared with you all through email, and you are most welcome to send in your views, comments, and suggestions, and they will be well received and taken on board. I now have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Rita Bissonnette for the wrap-up address.
Thank you. Honorable Mrs. Fazila Jiwa Doyau, Minister of Gender Equality, Child Development and Family Welfare, Mr. Dansingani, the representative of the Minister of Education and Human Resources, Tertiary Education and Scientific Research. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for still being here this afternoon. We are at the end of our 3 days reflection on the Education Forum on Strategies for Retention of Girls and Young Women in Educational Systems. This forum has been very rich, with very fruitful and enriching discussions due to your active participation. Thank you very much for this, for your valuable contributions to this forum. And I think what is most interesting is that we have had the opportunity of having both the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Education. And I turn again to thank again the Minister of Gender Equality for being here today in an education forum. This is very rare, something that we do not often see in member states. So thank you again, Honorable Minister, especially for taking the time to come here this afternoon. We took the engagement to address specific domains strongly related to girls' education, retention, good achievement rates through quality learning in teaching and learning environments, and also discussed about legal and institutional frameworks. However, we focused our attention mostly to girls in STEM and TVET areas and measured and categorized the respective challenges and proposed many strategies, as we have just seen in the call of action. We also addressed other important issues related to girls and women's education, and I think, again, your contributions really contributed to enriching our call for action. And we have seen that in the call for action, you have seen that the most constant and urgent strategies form part of this call of action, where we ask different actors at different levels to act and interact to address the challenges and to bring the changes expected in our member states. As we are leaving this forum to go back to our respective countries, to our respective institutions, I would just like to recall briefly a couple of recommendations just made. The importance of capacity building, of strengthening the role of certain stakeholders, the demystification and accessibility of STEM for girls, the need to address TVET, to look at TVET not as a standalone area, but as being part of the mainstream, eliminating myths and fear of scientific subjects. In the involvement of families, communities, media, traditional leaders, and other stakeholders in banishing all types of gender stereotypes, as well as revamping our learning and teaching materials, resources, and also maybe having more capacity building workshops, as we saw yesterday, concerning the legal and institutional framework, which was very important. Developing a monitoring, evaluation, and reporting framework with data, with statistics. We have seen more and more the importance, as many of you pointed the lack of data, of statistics, so that we are able to better develop policy. It is important also to involve the civil society and other institutions in helping member states in their reporting, in the implementation of projects, programs, and maybe also maybe accountability. I would like to make a call here for political will and a concrete support from your governments of our different member states to ensure the implementation of the recommendations that have been made in this forum, especially in the areas of STEM and TVET. I can promise you that as the African Union International Center of Girls and Women's Education in Africa, we will do our best to coordinate with you, member states, on the status of implementation of the different actions that you have taken. As the way forward, we are thinking of developing a platform for sharing of experiences, and I call upon our partners, I call upon anybody who would help us to set up such a platform. I would like to thank the government of Mauritius, especially the Ministry of Education and Human Resources, Tertiary Education and Scientific Research, the Republic of Mauritius, the Ministry of Gender Equality, Child Development and Family Welfare from the Republic of Mauritius for their invaluable help, support throughout the last months in the preparation of this meeting. I cannot not forget our interpreters. Thank you very much. The interpretation team, so I think we can give them a round of applause for all the hard work. The InterContinental Hotel for allowing us to be here, for giving us this beautiful room, the management of InterContinental Hotel, all our service providers, and finally to all my team from CIEFFA, I say thank you very much for everything. So let me wish you a safe trip back home until next time we meet.
Thank you, Dr. Biswanath. As you all know, our Minister of Education has been very instrumental in the materialization of this forum and gave her support all the way. We must also acknowledge the enthusiasm of our Minister of Gender Equality, Child Development and Family Welfare and her staff for their immense support and who have been very active during this past 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now the pleasure and privilege of inviting the Honorable Minister, Mrs. Jiwa Doriawu, to officially close the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Chair, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a great pleasure for me to participate in the opening and closing of this important forum where you have had the opportunity to share your experiences and ideas. I need here to extend special thanks to the African Union Commission, the African Union International Center for Girls and Women Education in Africa, the Commissioner of Human Resources, Science and Technology, the Minister of Education and Human Resources, Tertiary Education and Scientific Research, and also all the participants for their laudable efforts in making this discussion a concrete and successful one. Allow me to congratulate you for your active involvement in the thorough deliberation of this forum. Today, we have brought together our minds to ponder over the strategies for retention of girls and young women in educational system. This section of the population, marginalized in many countries, had long been required our unqualified attention. Our girls and young women in the African nations must be integrated in the mainstream education. It is their innate right to be trained, educated, and to get employed. Our discussions have been enlightening, and our sharing of experiences has been eye-opening. Establishing the foundation for an educational system which celebrates equality of gender and guarantees female inclusion is indeed a long process, a process requiring relentless efforts, perseverance, ambition, and also dedication. We are set to achieve this. Our intention is firm, but to achieve this, each one of us will have to contribute. Our action should be reflective, yet pragmatic. Gone are the days when the clocks in the education and equality wheels were considered insurmountable. Our synergy and commitment will pave the way to a successful integration of girls and young women in the educational system. There are definitely certain African countries which have kick-started the process, and this is commendable. In fact, across the last decade, huge progress has been made towards achieving gender equality, but tough challenges are still looming ahead. Especially on hearing Dr. Rita Bissunat revealing earlier on that only 1/5 of girls and women complete their secondary education in Africa, we do realize that we need to rethink our system. This forum brings a turning point, a new hope for our coming generations of girls and young women. During the different panels, various barriers such as cultural practices, misconception, stereotypes, popular beliefs, among many others, have been identified as hampering the retention of girls and young women in STEM and TVET. Discussions were geared towards encouraging and sustaining our girls in those sectors. Today, we have earmarked specific strategies to further retain girls and young women in educational system. For instance, we need to reduce the male dominance in STEM and TVET sectors and support our girls to persevere. More role models and mentors are required at various levels. Popularizing role models and mentors will contribute significantly towards promoting those sectors. Moreover, the whole popular, multidimensional sensitizing process, starting with the decisive role of parents, need to be focused upon. As far as national budgeting is concerned, it is imperative that funds or scholarship be allocated to further encourage girls and to promote gender equality. This will definitely yield positive results in the future. The gender mainstreaming approach in budgeting is essential to get all sectors to join hands to close gender gaps. Since last year, we already initiated this process in Mauritius by allocating funds for gender-responsive strategies to 5 ministries. The budget 2017-2018 makes provision for the extension of this measure to all ministries. This illustrates our commitment to further promote gender equality at all levels of our ministries. All these strategies must imperatively be implemented in the shortest delay. You will reckon that the real challenge lies in the effective implementation. This is indeed the key to successfully getting more girls and women engaged in the STEM and TVET sectors. The Ministry of Education will certainly be instrumental in closing existing gender gaps in these sectors. It is worth highlighting that as the chairperson of the National Steering Committee on Gender Mainstreaming, I will also get the opportunity to closely monitor the progress of the implementation process through the gender focal points of the Ministry of Education and all the other ministries. To conclude, allow me to once again thank all participants for their unflagging support and collaboration. I hope that this enlightening exchange of ideas will bear its fruits in the nearest future. We should create a model for Africa, and this is the time. I thank you all for your attention, participation, and motivation. And the last word, so I declare this education forum closed. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end, but before we each part on our ways, you're all invited outside to partake of some refreshments. Thank you.